I'm going to make a Trench Crusade diorama, and I'm working with one of these oval bases from Games Workshop with a slab of XPS foam on top of it. And I'm just going to start shaping this a little bit first. See, with a diorama, the idea is generally speaking that you look at it from one point. Now there's one idea that you have and one sort of display that you want to make. And so my focus point is going to be over here. But then I want this to slope up a little bit so that everything that's over here doesn't get in the way of what's up top. And you still get to see what's down here on the bottom, on the lower part of the diorama. So I'm just sort of shaving this off and also making it rougher. I want a lot of duality, let's put it like that. A lot of duality in this diorama. See, I want to oppose light and darkness with each other in this diorama. So I got a bunch of blocks and slabs and things here ready. And what I want is to sort of have chaos, the demons on this side, and order, humanity, on the other side. And so humanity, of course, has nice pavers and nice stones and bricks. And I'm going to put this little cross on this side as well. And chaos is going to be more organic, more nature. And so I want to sort of put them as opposing forces on this little diorama. So I'm going to give this side these nice pavers with a little cross here on top. Just a very rough sort of Christian shrine. Of course, I'm going to embellish this a lot. But then you have this nice view going up here. And I'll have some of humanity over here. And the Black Grail, so the demon of disease, comparable with Nurgle in 40k, on the other side. Now this XPS foam, I prefer to just seal it. So I'm taking some of this dark earth texture paste from AK Interactive. I'm just gonna make myself a little peanut butter sandwich. And while the texture paste is still wet, I get to glue these pavers in place. That way it doesn't look too much as if they're floating on top of the soil or on top of the base. I'm just gonna have them hang over a little bit so that I can cut them nicely to size later. Now with all the pavers in place, time to put the cross on there. And I'm just gonna put it nice smack in the middle, in the center. Try to line it out properly with those pavers as well, because even though I want you to look at the diorama sort of from this side, I can't put the cross facing you because then the pavers would be not aligned with the cross. It doesn't make sense that the pavers are like this and the cross is sort of tilted. So the cross is looking forward, but you'll be looking at it from the side like this. And just a little brick here and there to symbolize some of the destruction that is going on all on this side of the diorama. And while I wait for this to dry, I can start working on some of the miniatures that are going to be on this diorama. Now I'm participating with this diorama in the Grimdark Compendium's challenge for this month. And it's a diorama where you don't have to actually put any of the Trench Crusade factions on there. The other categories in the challenge, you need to do an actual Trench Crusade unit or a model. Here you're more free to do whatever you like. So that's what I'm doing. I'm just not trying to get one specific faction on here. I'm just going to try and make my own Trench Crusade guys here. And I'm starting with the Traitor Guard from Kill Team, because I think they have the right mix of being in uniform, like these guys, but still having some bits and pieces stuck on there and a little bit of a ragtag and raggediness to them. But of course, they come with chaos symbols as well, and I want to get rid of them. Not that they couldn't have this in the Trench Crusade universe, but it just reminds me too much of 40k, and I don't want that when I'm looking at a Trench Crusade diorama. Problem with Traitor Guard, though, is that they come with las guns, and that's another one of those 40k things that I just don't want to have in a Trench Crusade diorama, or a Trench Crusade miniature at all. So I'm going for these guys. These are the neophytes from the Genestealer cults. They've got proper shotguns and some sort of stubber, which looks a bit more like our own weapons. Quick dry fit later, and yeah, these arms work just perfectly for these Traitor Guards. Now, they need heads, and I'm going for Traitor Guard heads again, for two reasons. One, I want gas masks, or at least some kind of face covering, and yeah, you got the Deathcore of Creek, but they're a bit too recognizable for me. So I'm taking these Traitor Guard heads. This one actually has some kind of filter on his mouth, and this one has something of a chain in front of his face. Now, I think that these weapons even look a little bit too pristine. There's no straps, no nothing on there, so we're gonna modify them a little bit. So first of all, of course, a bayonet. And then I wrap a little bit of green stuff, just a small strip here, around the weapon. I want to make it look like there's need to tape something together or to sort of hold it together. Or maybe I'll just paint it as parchment and they, I don't know, bless the weapon in some way. But I just want to have a little bit of interest on this weapon. Now, I think they're lacking a bit of trench equipment. You know, some shovel, pouch here and there. So I'm going to see if I can find some bits on the Deathcore of Krieg sprue to enrich them with. And of course, here in the spot where I scraped away the chaos symbol, I'm gonna put some of the bits, because that will cover up the cleaning I did there, the scraping I did there. And like that, you don't even know I scraped anything away. So let's do a quick check of the composition now that I've done a little bit of work. And this is more or less what it's gonna be. Two guys kind of defending this cross from the horde of awful demons that are coming from this side. But if I only put these two guys here, it looks a little bit too modern to me. I missed the Crusade part of the Trench Crusade. So I'm gonna work on a third guy. And of course, that's going to be a big dude in massive armor that stands in front of these guys. Or maybe behind. I don't know yet exactly what the composition is going to be. But we'll figure it out. And this big dude in massive armor is the Arch Knight from the Cities of Sigmar. So of course he comes with all kinds of Sigmar comet symbols that have to be clipped off, and these strange tridents on his shoulders that I'm also gonna get rid of. And I got a pretty cool big guy standing there together with the soldiers. Problem is, the helmet that he normally comes with is way too ornate and looks clearly like it's from the Cities of Sigmar, so I gotta go find something else. Found one. It's a Death Guard helmet, but I think I need to get rid of this spike up here, and luckily this helmet doesn't have that much, I don't know, rust or pock marks or any Nurgle markings on there. And I think this way, I think he looks pretty cool. That's a pretty brutal knight there, ready to slay some of the demons that are coming at them. I think he's still missing something. I missed the Grimdark aesthetic a little bit. I don't know if it's the cord that's there or this beautiful crown symbol that he has. I can cover all of that up. Maybe he just needs a skull or two, but I'm gonna go look at some artwork, I think. Okay, looking at some artwork, he clearly needs some relics. Now the thing is, I could be able to build something up on his back, sort of have a cross or something that he's carrying along with him, sort of parading into battle. That would be really, really cool as a miniature, but not for this diorama, because if he's standing here in front of that cross, hang on, if he's standing here in front of the cross, then he would be obscuring the cross, and I want to make a nice shrine out of this, so that's not really possible. It needs to be on his body and not sticking out too much, not obscuring the other guys that are standing there. So I think I'm going to my favorite set for any bits, and that's the Empire Flagellants. And I'm going to give him some books, some scripture, something to bring the faith to the heretics, and I'll just get this nice one with the bone, no, the one with the skull. Let's do that one. I need some skulls for sure. And I'll also get him this thing. This is a bit of parchment, and there's already a couple nails in there. Perfect for stapling it to his chest piece to cover up that crown symbol, because what the hell is that doing there in a Trench Crusade diorama? Now maybe, I don't know, a little skull on a chain. Yeah, that will do as well. And perhaps the head of a heretic. So I'll put the book over here on his hip. I already put that skull on a chain on his weapon. I think that's a good place for it to be. And I want this to look pretty big and be pretty visible from quite a distance. I don't want him to look like just a guy in armor. No, this is a paladin of some sort. I put the parchment here on his chest. Was a little finicky, but it actually got under the weapon, so it now looks better, like it's supposed to be there. And then this head. I don't know if it's a martyr or a heretic. Either way, it looks cool. It has this weird band across his eyes so that he can't see, and across his head. So put it on his belt. And then I got this sort of hourglass left on a little bit of chain, and I'm gonna hang that on the front because it will give me the option to make a little visual detail over here that catches the eye, makes it interesting. Now let's see if I can fit this over here without making it look too weird. Nah, doesn't fit. So I'm gonna put this on his belt, but here on this side. Make it peek out of his sort of fur cloak, or is it fur? No, it's a scale cloak. A nice scale cloak. Maybe demon scales. How would I paint this? Metal or demon skin? Let's see. But I think like this, he looks more like a paladin. His head is on a bit weird. Make him look a bit up more. More like a paladin with his book, his skulls, little bits and pieces. I think what's lacking now is a bit of chain. And I'm gonna use the chain to chain his axe to his hands. So first a little bit here. And then I'll leave it dangling a bit and wrap the rest around his wrist. And he too takes his place to defend the shrine. I moved the other two guys around a bit, see if a different composition works better. I think this looks better. But that shrine right now, it's a bit barren, it's a bit boring. Doesn't really deserve all this defense. So let's work on the shrine next. First, a bit of sand and grit from Geek Gaming Scenics. This is that base ready material. You just put some PVA on the base of a miniature and then you can sprinkle on the sand and the little stones. And this will just tie these tiles together. While that's drying, let's make some bullet holes. I just wanted to show that this cross here, it's not out of the line of fire. So I'm poking in a screwdriver and then just turning it ever so slightly. There we go. A little bit more to sort of scrape out. There we go. Nice hole in the cross. Maybe one or two more. And I'm gonna need some relics that have been left behind, like little offerings here to the cross. This thing comes from the Bretonnian, the Knights on Foot. And they come with this really nice shrine here of the lady, you know, the Bretonnian lady. And I think we can make a sort of Virgin Mary out of that as well. Yeah, that looks like a decent shrine, I think, for Trench Crusade. So let me show you all the stuff that I did on this, so you have a little bit of an idea. Of course, that lady that I got from the Bretonnians is there, lots of skulls around it, some chain. I nailed some skulls here to the top with these sewing pins that don't come with the colorful bulb on top. A little relic over there. I got a book here in the back. Of course, the grid skulls here, some bits and pieces. And a little bit of a story with this chain. You know, it might have been draped around here nicely, beautifully. Maybe a sort of garland going somewhere else. And now it broke off and parts of it are here on the ground and other parts of it are here on this ground. Now, and if I put the other guys on here, then it comes out like this. And I think I'm quite happy with the composition as it is like this. I want to have you guys see it from this side. This is sort of the main angle where you can see the little lady, the little shrine there at the bottom, guy in the back stepping up, coming closer, getting, you know, into combat, and the big paladin up front. Of course, he needs to be fighting something, so it's time I start working on the Black Grail part, the demon part of this little Trench Crusade diorama. Now, of course, I can't put a big demon here in the front. You know, the Black Grail, Beelzebub, who is leading the Black Grail in Trench Crusade, he's the Lord of Disease, comparable to Nurgle. He also has big, corpulent champions. Putting one there blocks the view, so I can't do that. So I want stuff coming out of the ground, kind of grasping hands going towards the shrine, towards these guys. So I got here a couple of bits and pieces, really. I found all kinds of hands in the bits box of one of my friends. And I got this part, which I believe is from the Chaos Spawn. And I think I can make it look like this is coming sort of out of the ground, like that, standing up. And another hand or something like this. Like that's more of an actual hand grasping at the enemies up there. And I got a little body as well, which I would love to incorporate in here too. That, you know, it's not a sudden appearance or anything. This creeping rot has been moving forward for a while, and they've been fighting it for a while. So a body or something like this would be pretty cool too. But I want to add a little bit more, and that comes from the Galloppox Infected Kill Team. Quite possibly the coolest miniatures that Games Workshop has ever designed. And it's no longer in production. I got this as markers for my Death Guard army, but there's some really cool stuff like this massive fly, like a real rot fly, and there's little fly swarm over there and nasty grubs and maggots, which I think would fit really well with the Black Grail team too. And it's getting a little crowded, but that's kind of what I want. If, let's see, what's an easy camera? Like this. I think you can see it good enough like this. This guy's aiming his gun at that grub that is over there that is trying to consume this body. I think that's a pretty cool story here to tell. And these things are moving towards that paladin. And I got this fly, this weird tentacle, and then this hand that is clawing onto the pavement over there. Like I said, it's crowded, but that's kind of what I want. I want this swarm of nasty critters going towards these three guys here defending the shrine. But just a swarm of critters, that's not enough. I want to make things even worse. So I'm gonna microwave some PVA, and it will come out of the microwave looking like this. Nasty sort of demon skin. I think it's perfect. I can put this on the base and make it sort of look like this goo growing towards the shrine. So let's first though put this guy down over here and some of the other bits and pieces. Just not the fly and the little maggot, I guess it is. Weird maggot. But then I can start to peel bits and pieces off this Tupperware lid and drape them on the base. Now that's a right mess. Look at it. It's gruesome. It's not dry yet. It's still very pliable. And that's good because I want to put down the fly and the grub on there too. The fly especially, he has this weird perfectly round, hard base, and that would just stand out like a sore thumb if I didn't kind of cover it with this PVA goo. And like that, he fits there. And the grub as well. I think he's big and fat and probably heavy enough to make an indent in the goo. So if I leave this to dry and then glue this guy on top, he's just gonna sort of float on top of it, and that's not what I want. I want him to really look like he is part of the nastiness. It's gonna make painting harder because now I can't paint them separately, but hey, I think for a diorama it's worth to go the extra mile. It's the next day and I wanted to show you what PVA looks like after it dries up. So it becomes this clear plastic, and where it's not clear, that's where it's just much thicker, and so the inside isn't dry. That's fine, it probably never will. I'm just gonna start painting it and start priming. And I said at the start of the video that I wanted to create some duality, some contrast here on this diorama. And so that's why I painted the bad side, the demon side, nice and white, while the humanity side, the Christian side, becomes black. Because I want to sort of put them next to each other, because if you look at it now, life is on this side and death is on that side, but death is supposed to be with humanity. And so you get this weird contrast of humanity, the good guys in Trench Crusade, like evidently the good guys, against demons who bring life, which is weird, but it's fun. It's nice to turn things a bit on its head for a while. And that's also why I didn't add any candles to this cross or any parchment fluttering in the wind. I want this to look dead. I want this to look like there's no movement, there's no light, there's nothing here on this side of the diorama, which is of course the opposite of what you would expect. Normally the good guys there, they bring the light, they bring life. In this case, I'm gonna turn things around. And I like this idea of the god of disease also being a god of life. You know, a god of life gone wrong, but a god of life who values all life equally would value the life of a microbe the same as the value of a human being. So if you can have millions and millions of bacteria in an infection growing inside a single human being, that's a win for a god of life like this. So maybe Beelzebub is actually more like that. Like he's also the demon of greed, you know, the devil of greed, the demon of greed. I don't know exactly what they call them in Trench Crusade. But he is the greedy guy. And so greed, yeah, he wants to spread his disease everywhere. And not like Nurgle where it's gift. No. There's none of the happiness of Nurgle in Trench Crusade. There's no Nurglings, there's no sloppity bile piper. It's just all awful. But I like this idea of a god of life or a god of disease kind of being the same entity. And I'm trying to get a little bit of OSL going here, but as if the light is coming from this patch of nastiness over here and shining up against the cross, but no light coming from above. Another nice little way to turn things on its head. I'm starting to sound a bit like a pedantic see you next Tuesday, but I really want to play with this light and darkness idea, this idea of death and life coming from different directions, sort of putting things upside down on its head. Now I've been picking out details here on this side, the side of humanity. I'm starting to think that maybe the diorama would be better off without those guys in the front blocking the view. If you look at it like this, I think you have a pretty cool diorama already. Maybe I don't need those guys standing there, but you know, let's see. But let me explain a little bit what I'm trying to do here. I'm painting this side, humanity's side, in browns and reds and a little bit of gold now with the lady over here, so that I can then contrast that with more greens and nasty yellows on the other side. Again, contrast of light and darkness, contrast in color, but also I want to work on contrast in textures. And so on this side of the diorama, the humanity side, I start with a couple of dark washes from AK Interactive. And I've got the Villainy ink set over here that, you know, they're made by the Grimdark Compendium. I'm going to use those as well, but later on for the other side, because those dry up much more glossy than the AK Interactive ones. So here I really want to get some dust and dirt going and some dryness, because water brings life, and that side, the side of humanity, that's the side of death. But just enamels, that's not dusty enough. So I got some pigment powder. I got brown oxide, burnt umber, and some black oxide. And I'm going to use these three to just get a little bit of color going. Right here, just a little bit. And this is super bright. Don't worry, I'll go over this with the darker ones. I start with the lightest one and then go to the darker one. This one's really good for the rust as well. So these bits over here that have been painted with the dirty down rust, they get a little bit of this powder just to make it look drier. Like I said, I want the side of humanity to be the side of death, of no life. And maybe this is just because their god is protecting them, because anything that lives is a vector for disease, for the Black Grail. So maybe God is actually protecting the human side with keeping everything dry and taking away all life. Or maybe it's the humans themselves, who knows? Now we're talking dust, dirt. I mean, this looks like a horrible place to be defending, but defend they will. Now, I'm quite happy with the state of the human side of this diorama. It's time to work on the nastiness, the demon side. And so I'm going to start with a layer of Athonian camo shade. This is this nasty, sickly green. And over the bright white, we'll get some nice contrast going, some super bright highlights, and still some of this sickly green in the recesses. And I've got a few more greens and yellows. So I got Nasdrag yellow, Skeleton Horde, and Plague Bearer's Flesh contrast paints. And I'm going to use these to paint the fly, this weird tentacle, and the grub, so that they stand out a little bit from that bottom layer. Yikes, that's way too much color on the grub. It's too saturated, so I'm just going to dry brush him a little bit with some Deepkin Flesh. Nice white, greenish color. And I'm going to use this on the base as well, just to lighten it again. Time for a couple enamels. And I'm going to use the Villainy Inks ones. First, Carrion Crimson, but I also got Scolia Green Shade, Dystopian Brown, and Ichor of the Damned. And the reason I'm using these enamels instead of AK Interactive enamels or any others is that they're very glossy. So once they dry up, they give a nice shine and make it look like it's still wet. But there is an issue when working with these, or it's not an issue, it's a feature. The binding agent is what makes it glossy, not the pigment. So the more you dilute it, the less glossy it gets. And that's a bit of an issue because I don't want to dilute things too much. I still want to have this glossiness. But I also don't want to have too much red like this Carrion Crimson. This is going to turn everything really bright, bright red. So I have the problem of wanting a lot of red, but also not a lot of red, but a lot of shininess. So it's going to be a bit of an issue to work with these. But I think with enough blending and mixing of these enamels, I can get to what I want. So let's get some red going here on this grub first, and a little bit here and there in this patch. I want to make it look like it's more alive. Right now it just looks like there's maybe some nastiness, some fleshiness, but I want to make it look like this is suffering and stretching and alive. And so while the Carrion Crimson is still wet, I'm going to get some Colia Green Shade, the green enamel, and I'm going to dilute this a lot because it's super bright green, as you can see. And I'm just going to go over this with some of these red spots, and it will wash away some of the redness, but it will keep it glossy. So I get exactly what I want. Redness, but lightly pink rather than red, and still very, very glossy. The third enamel, that's Ichor of the Damned. A black one, again, nice glossy, and I'm going to use this mainly on the fly. I want him to be a bit darker than the rest, so he still stands out if you're looking from this corner over here. I want him to pop, and he will pop if he's a little bit darker than the rest on this side. Especially his wings, I would love to make this sort of a black fly, but black doesn't really work in this idea that I have, that light is on this side, darkness is on that side, life here, death there, but the humans are on the side of death and darkness, and the demons are on the side of life and light. Yeah, this isn't going the way I wanted to. I'm quite happy with how this part looks, this sort of slimy bit, but I'm not happy with the fly or the maggot, because you can't really see the details if I paint them like this. I quite like these effects, like the skin getting mottled and worn, but then you got these legs over here, the little paws, the mouth of the grub. They're just lacking detail if I paint like this. So I just have to pick out a bunch of details with some grays and greens and some browns, and then I can continue with the enamels. Back on track with the enamels, it's time for AK Slimy Grime Dark, which is green, slimy, and dark. Skipping forward a bit, I've done enamels back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, basically the 4 that I was working with, and I'm quite happy with the results. Look at that nice fly. He is rotten from the inside, the skin is hurting clearly. This grub, he's a bit more camouflaged when it comes to the sort of bottom, the slime layer, but his face looks pretty good, his mouth looks pretty good. just needs some more sliminess. And so for that, it's time for some technical paints. And I've got Zombie Gore from Tooth & Coats, which is basically a dark version of Blood for the Blood God. And I'm going to use that to at least color this sort of slime that flies up out of the mouth of this grub. But I'm also going to add a little bits of this to the fly. And of course, I got Nurgle's Rot as well. Another nice glossy technical paint that is perfect for slime. And then finally, some puddles from AK Interactive. And it looks like this, like a really nasty sort of browny, grimy puddle. And it will dry up glossy as well. So I'm going to use this, especially here on the soil, sort of on the edge of this plaque of goo, where it meets the soil, to make it show that there's something nasty leaking out of it. But it's also a good way to make the rest of the stuff shine a bit more, such as here. Bits and pieces that are particularly bright white, I want to have them very shiny, like here on this guy. This needs to look as shiny as possible. I still need to do the legs, but I think this is sort of the paint scheme I want to paint those guys in. And as I said before, I'm not 100% sure the diorama will improve with a bunch of guys standing here in front of the cross, but I'll paint them up anyway, and then we'll see if I actually glue them on there. So let's paint the two troopers and then the guy, the big knight, the paladin. And I'm just going to keep these guys very, very gray. I want them to almost blend into the background, because otherwise, if they stand out and you got that glob of slime on the other side, the effect that I'm trying to achieve is going to be lost. You're going to have too much light on the side of the humans, and I just want darkness over there. So I made some headway with these two guys, but I gotta keep in mind that the light is coming from the bottom, shining up. So I'm now going to wash them a little bit with this panel liner that I also used on the stones in the same location. And I'm going to make sure that it is darkest at the top and lightest at the bottom, which is weird. I'm not used to painting like this. So I gave these two guys a little dry brush with metallics. First Iron Warriors and then silver for brighter highlights. And all of it going from the bottom up to get that light shining up in their faces. And I'm just going to put them on the base, because I think they do add something to this diorama. Like I said, maybe they don't, maybe they do, but I think if I get him in the right place, he'll be aiming perfectly at that grub. I think that's a nice little action shot. And then this guy goes in the back, kind of running in as reinforcements, trying to support his buddies that are fighting over here. I'm just going to put him over here on top of this shrine. And I've got to let these guys settle, dry, and then I can wash them with the same brown wash that I used for pretty much everything over here, and also get some of the pigment powder back onto them to really make them part of that side of the diorama. Time to work on the big guy first though, so I can blend them all together into the diorama at the same time. I'm just going to dry brush him all over with some Iron Warriors and then a small highlight of silver, trying to really capture the weapon and sort of the focus points of this mini, like his hands and his helmet. So I picked out a couple details in the same colors as the stuff that's there, such as the skulls and the paper, and now it's time to write something on this scroll. And for that, I'm taking a dark gray, so not black, because black would just stand out too much, but a sort of dark gray, that will do. And I'm just going to make some little scribbles on here. Not bad. And now he needs a little bit of gold right there. I'm going to see if I can not muck this up right at the end and make it like a little big gold blob. But I try and make a little cross out of it. He then needs a little wash with the panel liner. Same stuff I've used before. And of course, a dark brown wash for the browner parts on him. And I'm also going to use this to simulate a little bit of rust without actually painting rust on there. Now I got some of the dirty down rust here and there on the chain mail and on the chain itself, but a little bit of brown wash will add some to that effect. But he also needs a little bit of blood spatter, not too much. I mainly want to focus it here around the axe, and I want to see if I can get a few spots onto that parchment that he has. And then he can take his place on the base right there. Gotta make sure he's looking straight at the fly, and he is. And just hold him in place for a second. And then I need to dust him with some more pigment powders. And then suddenly my Trench Crusade diorama is finished. I am quite happy with how it turned out. I achieved what I wanted to achieve, this playing with light and darkness, life and death, making the demon side the side of life and light, while the human side is the side of death with all its skulls, the cross, the rusted through metals, and make it the dark side. I think it's a fun sort of take on the grim darkness of Trench Crusade, and I think it fits the Trench Crusade universe actually quite well. That the humanity does live in darkness and in misery in this universe. I like also the contrast between the sliminess of the Black Grail side and the dusty chalkiness of the human side. It's another way to get contrast in this diorama, and it's another way to make it sort of pop and stand out. And yeah, halfway through I said I wasn't really sure if the guys that are standing there, the humans, if they would actually add anything to the diorama, but I'm happy I put them there after all. I think it's a much better diorama this way than if I left them out. If I wanted to do something different, like without these guys, I should have put the Black Grail stuff way up on the cross, like it's consuming the cross and climbing all over it, maybe something like that. But yeah, I'm really happy with this. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I'm gonna submit this now to the Grimdark Compendium for their Grimdark challenge, and let's see how it goes. If you enjoyed this, join the Discord. There's lots and lots of people there. We enjoy hanging out, talking about the kit bash we're doing, show off your photography, and ask advice if you need advice with kit bashing. And I've got a Patreon too, in case you want to support the channel. In the meantime, maybe check out this video next.